Balancing a role as an agency employee with being one of the best known freelancers in the world is an incredible balancing act. I know from experience as an agency owner how challenging it can be when team members also freelance. So this week I caught up with Tony Christiansen to ask him how he pulled it off. Tony's area of focus is Facebook ads, and while working for one of the US's most high-profile agencies, he's also very well known in his own right. We talk about this, as well as Facebook ad strategies, how small businesses can make money go further, and some simple tactics you can employ today to start winning big, whether as a freelancer or as an agency owner. Welcome to Amplify, the Digital Marketing Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Bob Gentle, and every Monday I'm joined by amazing people who share what makes their business work. If you're new to the show, then take a second right now to subscribe, so you don't miss new episodes, and you can grab some older ones when you're done with this one. Don't forget, you can also join our Facebook community. Just visit amplifyme.fm/insiders and you'll be taken right there. Also, if you enjoy YouTube, then you can join me on YouTube. Just search Bob Gentle on YouTube and you'll find me easily. So welcome along and let's meet Tony. So this week my guest is Tony Christiansen from Tony Does Ads, which again is a slightly odd business name, but Tony wears many hats and Tony will explain this himself. So Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here, Bob.
I'm really excited to speak to you because I've been following you online for quite a long time, and we've never actually had an opportunity to engage with each other outside of possibly the odd little bit of nonsensical banter online. So it's really nice to actually spend some time with you. Do you maybe want to start just by telling the audience a little bit about who you are, where you are, and the kind of work you do?
Yeah, so I'm Tony Christiansen. I've sort of built up my personal brand, which goes by Tony Does Ads here. It's everywhere online. You can find me. And yeah, I specialize in primarily Facebook and Instagram advertising for different e-commerce companies. So I do kind of my own consulting and advising to various people that reach out to me, as well as I work full-time at a marketing agency called Now Marketing Group, which is kind of founded by Jessica Phillips, which is over in Ohio, but I am in Phoenix, Arizona area. So working from home most of the time. With that work at the agency, it's full-time. They're kind of a full-service agency. So I'm doing that full-time during the day. And then kind of when I get off work, I focus on other needs and people that might reach out to me for various consulting endeavors that might be advertising related. It might be, recently it's been more kind of conversion optimization for websites when it comes to the e-commerce side of things, as well as just helping people with copywriting and making sure their message kind of gets across in the right way.
So there are lots of ways we could go with you, and any regular listeners will probably straight away have the question, but Bob usually has business owners on the show. To have somebody that's full-time employed in a business that belongs to somebody else, he's never done that before. And there's a very good reason for that, because as you said, your personal brand is Tony's Does Ads. And to be honest, I know your name. Today's the first day I ever heard of the company you work for. And that's quite unique. Was that something you've done quite consciously?
Yeah, it kind of, well, coming to my name, yes, it kind of was something that I was like, I needed to build my own personal brand. It was kind of back to years ago when I went to my first social media marketing world, and I really started to get into advertising. And I just knew, personal brands were kind of the future. So that's kind of where I started. I was like, I need to get on, Twitter, I need to get on YouTube and all these different platforms and start getting people to know my name. And that's kind of how I created Tony Does Ads. And I started working at different advertising agencies. And even the ones that I started with were basically emphasizing and helping people with personal brands. So they encouraged it actually in a lot of ways, which was really cool. And I started, ended up doing some contract work for Now Marketing Group, which is that agency that I'm at now. And things just kind of evolved, and they ended up being like, do you want to just run all of our ads for us and just come on full time? And I was like, of course. So I ended up kind of jumping over there and just haven't stopped since.
I think somebody building a personal brand inside of another business, it is very unusual. And I'm somebody that I'm all in on personal brand. Today, I spent the whole day on a workshop with Chris Tucker. That's how invested I am on this.
Oh, yeah.
But I tell you, in all the people that were there, none of them were employees. They're all running their own business.
Yeah.
And I know that as somebody who ran a good-sized agency, none of my team would have stepped up to build their own personal brand. They were all very keen to take rather than actually give of themselves into it. So it is very unusual.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because I've just seen a lot with people that I talk to on Twitter as well, and a lot of the people I'm connected with are other advertisers or strategic marketers online. And what's really cool is it's almost like influencer marketing in a way where you build up your personal brand and people start to really love you for who you are. And then people get really excited when you announce like, hey, I'm going to this company now. And I think a lot of companies that I'm starting to see now are starting to kind of get that idea of we can bring, people that already have really good personal brands, and now we kind of bring their spotlight on our brand even more, which can kind of help the business in ways, but maybe we'll talk about that in the future too. It also can detract too. So it's an interesting fine line in a lot of ways with personal brands and working for an agency that you don't own,
I think from an employer's perspective, it probably is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But you would rather have your sword sharp on both sides, would be my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, from an employee's perspective, lots of value. From an employer's perspective, there should be lots of value there. So I think you're a fantastic role model. If there's anybody listening in an agency working in somebody else's business, I guess it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You're running your own private business alongside the agency business. And again, that's something that's quite unusual. Do you maybe just want to talk about how you make that work?
Yeah, and I think the biggest key with that is being upfront about it from the get-go, and that's something where when I talked to Jessica about, going to her agency, I was like, she already knew I had my brand, and I told her that, I have a brand, I have some clients even that I'm working with still. How is this going to work? And that's a conversation that you should have up front. There are other people out there that might not have that conversation, and they might try to hide work that they're doing. And I don't think that's ever really a good way to handle it, because you're probably going to get found out. So don't ever do that. There's a lot of risks in both sides of doing that. And even I've seen agency owners that have someone that might have a personal brand, and then they steal clients and that kind of stuff. So it is sort of a interesting territory to handle. I think as an agency owner, and as the other side of it, you really have to be upfront. You have to be transparent, and you have to make sure that you both trust each other in a lot of ways, because it is a lot of responsibility, I think, for both sides to be in that kind of relationship. How I handle it, I basically have my Tony Does Ads calendar. It starts pretty much when I get off work at Now Marketing Group. It's very segmented. So I get off work, and then people can book calls with me after that. So basically I get off work at around 3 p.m. People can book me, basically it's at nights, which some people don't like that because they reach out to me, from the UK and other places too. And I'm like, it's not going to work. If I have to meet earlier, there are, instances where I'll meet with people on Saturdays and things like that, which kind of, isn't the best sometimes, but it's just kind of the nature of it. And there's things like this that might meld the two together, which is like I'm talking about my personal brand and I'm talking about Now Marketing Group as well. So I kind of, I make sure that they know that I'm doing these sort of things, and they're okay with it in a lot of instances, because a lot of times I'm promoting their brand in a lot of ways too. But yeah, it's something where you have to be transparent up front. I think that's the best way to kind of handle it.
I think that's one of the things with a personal brand as well, is the more you invest in your personal brand, the more you are invested in the integrity of that brand. So if you tarnish that integrity through breaches of trust, that doesn't go away. That sticks with you forever. You can't dodge that because you've built this personal brand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Jessica's a speaker, and that's, I've heard of her from, she has a conference that she runs called Social Media Week Lima out in Ohio as well. So I've heard of her and her agency and things, and that's where I went to meet her actually at Social Media Marketing World, because people were like, you have to go to her conference, you have to meet her. And when I met her, we just both had kind of the similar mindset where it's, it sounds crazy, but it's like the, treat your clients really well, have good customer service. And she's really big on relationship marketing and just focusing on that. And that's sort of the core of my personal brand, is very much aligned with their agency as well. So it was a really good fit. And yeah, that whole mindset of that is be transparent, care for others, and show up, and really kind of go above and beyond for people that you are working for. So
absolutely. And I think Now Marketing is a full service agency. They do all the traditional things and the digital things as well.
Yes.
But your focus is ads, and particularly Facebook and Instagram ads. So let's focus in on that a little bit. What does a typical client within Tony's Does Ads look like for you? Because I guess it's different from a Now Marketing client. So let's start with the Tony Christiansen client.
Yeah, it's been something that's been evolving more lately. I'm someone that really follows my passion. So I've really been getting into kind of conversion rate optimization and copywriting. So when I learn more, I kind of share my ideas, and then people hear about like, oh, you're really good at writing copy or this or that. So for me, I've had people more recently reach out about copywriting and just like, I have an e-commerce website. What can I do to help my conversion rates? So I'm kind of doing things like that and auditing different websites. I help other agencies sometimes too that are getting into ads and they're wanting to figure out, how do we start, as well as other founders and people that, they might have an agency running their stuff and they might need someone to just dip into their account and see, is this look good? Is there things that we can improve on? So it's sort of consulting in ways, it's advising, and then just doing certain projects that might pop up. If it might be like recently I'm helping a lady rewrite some of her website copy too. But yeah, a lot of the advertising related things are, my brand, Tony Does Ads, I really prefer to work with e-commerce only. It's just something that I'm really familiar with. I like sort of the bigger spends, of like if you're spending $10,000 or more a month, just because a lot of those businesses, they've figured out a lot of things already. Whereas if you're newer, or if you're a startup or something, you might still have to work on a lot of your messaging. And that kind of particular client would be someone that's really well suited for Now Marketing Group, because they do a lot of the, let's figure out your brand voice, let's figure out what your customer personas are, and they work a lot on organic content as well. So sort of those clients are really good for Now Marketing Group. But if someone just wants advertising help and insight, then that's something that's might be better for kind of my own Tony Does Ads brand.
And within the whole conversion space, obviously you work in your practice mainly with e-commerce businesses, but you have much broader experience. I'm curious to know, in terms of conversion, do you find that there are some areas you immediately, instinctively want to hone in on because you know that there's probably a little pot of gold in the corner there?
Yeah, that's actually like one of the reasons why I really like Now Marketing Group is I like I've said a few times, is they really focus on that kind of the start of figuring out what your brand voice is. And that's sort of when it comes to ads. If I have someone that reaches out to me and they're like, I'm just launching this company, can you help me out? I really don't even want to touch it because I know they're going to need a lot of work figuring out kind of that brand voice, what works, what resonates with people, their messaging. I can help with that, but it's just it's something that I'm not as passionate about, and Jessica and Now Marketing Group are. So that's kind of the difference in ways. And sorry, I don't know if I answered that question very well.
I guess where I'm coming from is on most websites that there are conversion problems or opportunities that you can exploit. And do you find that when you work with a new client that there are some obvious things that you can go and unpick and that will lead to a better conversion rate?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I think lately I've been looking at a lot of kind of website usability and figuring out how to make websites better. And there's this book I've been reading that's called Don't Make Me Think. And I think that's a really good mindset to have when you're looking at a website, is you have to have the mindset of kind of that first time website visitor. And I think a lot of businesses don't have that. They want to talk about themselves. They want to have their logo nice and big. They want to say, we've been in business for this many years and we do this and we do that. And that's the main shift that I kind of like to tell people about and try to get their mindset more aligned with. So you have to think about someone that's basically going to your website and has this kind of mindset of like, okay, who cares? I don't care about your brand really. What can you do for me? Is kind of the person that you need to be talking to on your website. So a lot of it is realigning kind of what a business says about themselves to what a customer is actually looking for, and how you can position yourself to be that, that solution for their problems. So showing that, you've been there, you can empathize with them, and then showing that you are, you have social proof, you have credibility, authority, you've been there before, so you kind of have that solution that they don't have to worry about, paying for. So it's sort of having that mindset shift, which can be kind of an overhaul on copy in a lot of ways. And then it's focusing on, what is that conversion that you want, right? Do you want people to call you? Do you want people to download your lead generation item? Do you want someone to buy? And then making sure that kind of stands out on your website. And it's very clear, it's that button that's, it pops from the website. There's an audit I did just last night, and their main button was like a shop now button, and it was basically the same colors of everything else on the website. So you don't even really see it. And that's like just a quick, easy thing, like just make whatever you want them to do be the apparent thing that you want them to do, right? So that's like the main thing. And if it is something that's like, I would say another main thing that I see a lot too is when you're having blog posts and all the different pages on your website, think about what the call to action is, especially like on the bottom of pages. So that's another thing I see, where they might have a blog post, the About Us or whatever it might be, and then you get to the bottom and there's nothing there. And that's kind of the thing that you want to help people with too, is kind of the what's next? What should I do now that I just have this information? So there's like some quick things that a lot of people can do fairly easily, just like add whatever it might be, related products, maybe if it's to the blog post, if it's About Us, maybe just redirect them back to whatever those services are and learning more about those,
I love that. And I think that the don't make me think was really important, because most people browse instinctively.
Yeah.
And they don't think, they're not in an active thought process. They're browsing. Browsing is an unconscious process. And I recently installed Hotjar on my website and a few clients' websites. And it's incredible, actually, when you watch people moving through your website, how you have these big moments where you slap your forehead and think, obviously, why would you design it like this? Yeah. And it does make me reflect on how a lot of websites get built. Yeah. If you imagine the situation in the average small website agency, they've struggled to get through a project with a client. The project's usually been built by a few hipster 20-year-olds who don't understand the business. And by the time that project is signed off by the client, they're done, hands washed, thank you very much, let's get paid, gone. They're not looking at the site from a conversion perspective. They're looking at it from a get paid perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy, because I'm seeing a lot of similarities now with kind of how I've done ads with like working with videographers, because I don't necessarily create the creative. I usually work with a videographer or a creative team that can make the images and videos for what I need for ads. And it's very similar to me working with a website designer or web development team with websites. So, with creative, there's people that are great at making videos, and they might be great for like telling your brand story. They might be great for movies, but that doesn't work for ads, And similarly with websites, there's people that make really beautiful looking websites, but they might not convert at all or make any sense to a user. So it's sort of I'm seeing a lot of similarities and patterns in both of these things that I'm really just kind of diving into now a lot more, is where like you can have really skilled people at making videos, but they might not be very good at making videos that actually convert, and that sell your products. A good kind of mindset I like to talk about with videographers is, a lot of people make, and a lot of brands do this too, and it's similar again to the website thing, is they want to have their logo show up first, or on the website they want to have their logo nice and big, where people don't really care about that. And when you're running ads, I compare it a lot of times to people that buy tickets to movies, to basically like a billboard on the highway. So a lot of businesses and videographers that I've worked with in the past are making these, movies that they have seen before where people have paid money, they're sitting in the movie theater, and you can have your logo show up nice and slow. You can have that slow intro. Whereas the reality of it, people on social media don't want to see ads at all. So you have to kind of treat it like it's like a billboard where you're driving by at 60 miles per hour. They're not paying to see you at all. They're not invested in your brand at all. So you have to kind of show up in certain ways where you grab their attention really quick, in like 3 seconds or less. So you have to treat it a lot differently. Whereas with websites as well, it's kind of similar where your logo nice and huge in the header might distract from the actual call to action or the actual need and solution that someone's looking for. So you have to kind of, again, have that don't make me think attitude that new website visitors and people that are looking at your ads kind of have.
I think there's something really interesting I saw with, the Thrive themes, Thrive people.
Mm-hmm.
They have Thrive Architect, which is their equivalent of things like Beaver Builder and Elementor, the sort of WordPress visual site builders. And they made a philosophical stance that they weren't going to provide an animated hero module because they said it doesn't work. They don't convert.
Mm-hmm.
They just distract. And so lots of people don't use the Thrive ecosystem for that purpose, for that reason.
Yeah.
But it was just very interesting the stand that they would make on such a strong conversion point.
Yeah, and that's a crazy thing too, because like a lot of the e-commerce people I work with, they are using Shopify themes, and some of those Shopify themes aren't necessarily set up for conversions. Like they might have, like one of the things I don't like to see, but a lot of websites have it, is a slider at the top that might have that call to action that then after a second or two it slides again. And I hate that because it's kind of an interruptive experience, for someone that's going to your website. They're trying to search around for their solution, and then boom, you put something else on them. And so it's just kind of like interruptive, and it can kind of distract why someone's going to your website. So a lot of times those can hurt conversion rates, where a lot of the really good conversion rate experts are going to say, have one image there, and maybe it is instead of that slider, you stack those images kind of underneath each other. And space them out more visually, but you still have that main focus right there that says shop our latest collection or whatever it might be. And it's not something that's kind of sliding and changing people off, making people kind of off guard with what they went to your website for.
Yeah. I think something else I would like to ask you about is retargeting ads, because I work with clients on low-level ad stuff a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that the way I often describe it to them is, if you're going to pay £1 or $1 to get someone to your website, why would you not add the retargeting in and have them sort of roll around in your pinball machine for a while? And it always seems to get great results. But that's on a very small scale. I'm interested to understand, how can that work on a large scale? Does that scale up?
Yeah, that's like one of the biggest places I like to start. Is the remarketing, and that's where some of these really small, I didn't say take out small brands. Some of these brands, that are starting out or might have local budgets, I would say, or smaller businesses. The retargeting can be some of the most valuable ads that you can run. And it depends on a lot of things, like how much traffic you're actually having on your website. If you don't have any, you kind of want to build your brand, then that's different, and you probably want those kind of top of funnel ads going that you're putting out that value. But there's a few businesses that I'm helping right now that we're just doing remarketing ads because they do have smaller budgets and they don't want to spend a lot. But we are doing highly targeted ads, bringing people back to the website. And yeah, when it works with e-commerce that are spending more money, it's similar in a lot of ways where you're really not spending very much money in retargeting ads. I typically do sort of 3 different tiers. So you have top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. Just to break it down real quick, top of funnel is basically I'm targeting lookalike audiences, so people that share characteristics of your most valuable audience that you might have, which might be like a purchasers list or recent purchasers or something. And I might do like interest-based audience. So if you're selling I can't even give you a great example right now, but interest based. So like if it's fashion, maybe you're targeting Michael Kors or whatever it might be as a random example. So that's at the top. You're targeting these businesses, you're trying to or people, and you're trying to give them value and bring them down. And then the next level I typically do is engagers. So people that are going to your website, interacting with you online, watching your videos, that kind of thing. And then the bottom, those main remarketing ads that I do are dynamic product ads. And they're just so valuable because it's basically the ones that are showing you the same product that you just looked at back on Facebook. And it's where some people are like, oh, Facebook's kind of creepy or whatever. But they work, and they work really well. But in terms of where the budget's split, the top of funnel, I might be spending 70% of the budget there. And then I'm kind of trickling down maybe 20% at the middle and then 10% or so at the bottom. So you're not spending a lot at that bottom, but that is kind of the ads that do clean up those sales of people that might get distracted, on their phones. I just heard like a great example, like, you could be on your phone and you might have like your dog run into something and spill something over, so then you're leaving the website or whatever it might be, or someone shows up at your door or whatever it might be. So people get distracted a lot, especially on their mobile phones. It's just kind of the way people are now. So it's great to have those kind of remarketing ads that kind of reminds them to come back and finish their order. And sometimes you might need to nudge them and give them like a discount, free shipping or something too. Sometimes that works as well. But a lot of times just reminding them again to come back and shop works well.
I think it's important for me to just push the pause button for a second here and encourage anybody that's listening to go back and listen to that again. Because what you just had there was a masterclass in a very, very crystallized form on how you should run ads. Because what you said was that you're spending all the 70% of the money in the top of the funnel. And and that's where most businesses are spending 100% of their money. By spending that additional 30% on building that remarketing mix, that's where you're doing all the selling.
Yep, exactly.
So the majority of businesses, in my opinion, that are dabbling in Facebook ads, they're not doing the remarketing element. 30% more money, 100% of your sales.
Yeah, and if you have really good ads, like you can get pretty good sales numbers from the top of funnel too. But yeah, that's the middle and bottom is where you really kind of clean up. And you don't have to spend as much because at the top you're basically funneling people down. That's why I call it a funnel, right? So at the top, you're hitting all of these people that are kind of that same interest group. You're providing them value, make them happy, whatever you might be doing, make them start to like your brand. And then maybe at the middle, it's more like, here's what we offer now. Here's what makes us different. Those kind of things, reviews, testimonials. And then, at the bottom, it's just great to be like, here's that product that you did look at, that you were shopping on our website for. So because the audience at the top is this huge bucket of people that you're targeting, and then at the middle, it's just remarketing to those people that started to engage with your brand, might have went to your website. That's why it's a smaller budget. And then again, at the very bottom, it's just those people that looked at specific products and then showing them ads for those. So that's why, if you split it up evenly, you'd be showing those people at the very bottom like tons of ads, and they would get too tired of them. So that's kind of why you split it up that way. And then you can focus a lot at the top on, acquiring new customers, which can become really valuable for brands,
So for any one client, and there's not going to be a simple answer for this, but with a typical client, how many ads are you running at any one time at each point of the funnel?
That is a great question. So the bottom of the funnel will be the easiest one to explain, so I'll start there. So bottom, since it's those dynamic product ads is what they're called, I typically might run 2. I might even run 1 depending on how well it performs. And it depends, like you said, it depends on budget a lot of times too, because basically at the bottom, if your budget is bigger, I can basically say, let's do a dynamic product ad to people that have went to the website in the last 3 days and looked at products, right? And then if it's still big, I can say, now let's segment out, the next people from like 3 to 7 days and show them another ad. And then from, 8 to 14 days, I'll show them another ad. And maybe you're having like sometimes you might taper off different discounts and things. So, if at first you're reminding them to buy your product and they don't buy, then maybe the next time you're like, well, how about free shipping now? And kind of trying to reel them back in. And the next time maybe it's like, how about, buy one, get one free, or 20% off now. So depending on the budget, I might have, 1 to 3 ads, maybe a little bit more. Like I said, yeah, it depends on so many things. And the top, yeah, it can range really in a lot of ways. So for example, if you're spending, $10 a day or something, ideally you're running ads for what's called conversions. So, you're optimizing for someone to do something on your website. It might be purchase, it might be sign up for your lead generation offer, whatever it might be. So if you have, a smaller budget at the top and you're running, 10 ads, Facebook doesn't have enough information per week to really optimize for the results. So if you have a smaller budget, you have to be running a lot less ads. But I still like to test most of the time. So I might test audiences, or I might test, the same audience and have a few different ads in that. But it can really range in a lot of ways. So, I mean, I've done, for a typical is like not even a term really, but for the smaller businesses, it might be, let's say, 5 ads or so at the top of the funnel. At the middle, maybe it's 2 ads. At the bottom, maybe it's 1 or 2. For the bigger businesses that are spending, $10,000, $25,000 or more a month, it could be hundreds of ads that you're running. Facebook now, though, is changing to be more where they're optimizing a lot better for you. So they're actually kind of preferring you to use less audiences that are slightly bigger than what they used to be. Like if it was 1 or 2 years ago, I'd be splitting up audiences a lot more out. And segmenting them more and having way more ads, but now they kind of want you to have bigger audiences so they can kind of rely on their AI to optimize for the results. So it's a very long answer to your question, but yeah, I would say anywhere from 5 to hundreds of ads per clients typically.
I think, well, it wasn't actually a long answer compared to where you could have gone with it. It was as concise as you could sensibly be. And gold for anyone that cares. So that's a really good masterclass on Facebook ads. And I think an important lesson there is there's no right or wrong. It's important to experiment and try things out, but to not leave all that money on the table by not having the retargeting ads there it just makes me sad.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to do any ads, it better be retargeting ads. Like bare minimum, just because then it does depend though. If you don't have any traffic to your website whatsoever, if you don't have any sort of social media engagement, then okay, work on your top of funnel. But primarily I would say focus on the remarketing ads, because that's the low hanging fruit really, right? So those are the people that already know about you. They already sort of have been looking at your website or interacting with you. So you've already built up that trust a little bit more with those people. So it's going to be a lot easier to kind of get them to buy.
So for anybody that's listening, doesn't know what we're talking about, remarketing ads are advertising to people who have visited your website, and that's delivered through tracking the visitors to your website on Google through the Google tracking code, and on Facebook through the Facebook tracking pixel. And the reason I go through all that little ramble is to ask the question. I know on Google there's a minimum audience size that you have to accrue. Does that also apply on Facebook?
It kind of depends on what you're specifically asking, I guess. If let's say you want to remarket to like your email list, it has to be a minimum of 100 people. So if you have a list of 50 people, that won't work at all. In terms of targeting actual audiences, like say you're doing a cold audience that you're trying to target, and you're saying within 10 miles of this business or whatever, it's better to have more people in that audience that you're targeting. I'm not sure. I think Facebook does limit it. I'm not sure exactly what that number is.
Where I was coming from,
like let's say if you want to do,
where I was coming from specifically was the website visitors, retargeting them.
They'll run those ads pretty much with whatever number that you have. But you're going to. I mean, the minimum spend you can do per day is going to be $1. So if you have 10 people, a day going to your website, maybe your product is worth a lot of money, so it's okay to run those ads. But I would recommend kind of doing them once you kind of built up more visitors. So it depends in a lot of ways, but primarily they don't typically, I don't know of a number off the top of my head that they'll say, we're not going to run these for you. If there's people that go onto your website, they'll typically show them those ads. But if there are a smaller audience like that, like maybe it is 50 people or something that you're sending those ads to, they're typically going to cost a lot more. It's just how they do it. The smaller the audience, the more the cost is, just because it is more targeted. So that's something to keep in mind. So ideally, have more people going to your website first. And that's where that kind of the top of funnel and the middle of funnel might help out more, to really start promoting, getting traffic to your website.
I think the reason I ask is obviously entirely selfish, is I have some clients that have very, very specific sort of niche engineering businesses, and their websites are very quiet for very good reasons.
Yeah.
There's only a few people in the world that would be actually interested in their business, but they're very high value. Running remarketing ads for them on Google is a problem. Whereas from what you're describing on Facebook, that could be perfectly valuable.
Yeah, and one of the things you might be able to do in that case too is just make that time frame a little bit longer. So, if it's a really busy website, I could do a remarketing to like 7-day visitors. Sometimes I've done like 1 day, 3 day. If it is a smaller business, it might be more like 60-day, 90-day, 180-day visitors. So, someone that's, been to the website, 2 months ago or something, for example, just know when you do that, they might not recollect going to your website. Yeah. So that's one of the things that you have to keep in mind as well. But that can help kind of make that audience size a little bit bigger, which can help out.
So I guess one of the things we started talking about was the Tony Christiansen, Tony Does Ads personal brand. And personal brands don't happen by accident. They need to be built intelligently and deliberately. So I'm curious to know, what does your personal brand ecosystem look like? And how did you go about that?
That is a great question. It's been a evolving work in progress, I would say, as well. It kind of started with, I would say, started on more like YouTube, and now I'm going a lot more to Twitter in terms of kind of products and services. It was helping people do kind of like retainer work, where it is managing bigger client accounts. And now it's shifted more to doing more consulting, advising. So meeting with someone, and there's a lot of people that reach out to me and they just want to figure out how to start, as well as like how to set up their structure of that funnel that I kind of talked about too. So that's another thing that I can do quite a bit. And then more recently, like I've said, I've been getting more into kind of the conversion rate optimization. So that's something that I've been kind of toying with a lot more at Now Marketing Group with some of those businesses that we're helping out. So making tweaks there. But then again, it kind of can bleed out into my, my own personal brand. And now I'm, talking with other people that have websites and e-commerce businesses that I might be able to find, your button here is a little weird, or you're using too much brand lingo and people don't know what that means. And kind of offering that as a consulting kind of service to people.
One of the things that we were speaking about before we came on air was Twitter. I was asking you which was your favorite social media platform, and you mentioned Facebook, you mentioned YouTube. I asked you what your favorite was, and you said Twitter, which right now, for a lot of people, might sound like an unusual choice. Tell me why.
Yeah, so Twitter, I'm finding it is the best to really quickly network with. For me, it's all sorts of media buyers out there, so I can find out what's working wherever those people are, what they've tested and what's worked. It's great too with media buyers as well, because I can find different bugs and issues that people are dealing with, and some of them might be able to reach out to a Facebook rep before I can, so they can get information faster. So it sort of keeps a really good pulse on the whole advertising industry in a lot of ways. There's some really interesting brands and personal brands out there that talk about research that they're doing, things that they're seeing kind of with the industry as a whole, which is really interesting, especially with like all of the COVID shutdowns that were happening. We could track and have businesses that, a lot of these guys do surveys with a lot of us as well. So you can get data on kind of how people are feeling about the industry and what's actually happening, kind of with aggregated data, which is really cool too. So we could see, our costs are really low or our costs are rising now steadily. So it's really interesting for that kind of stuff. as well as the other side of it too, the client side. There's a lot of the kind of direct-to-consumer business e-commerce clients, owners out there that are on Twitter talking about getting funded or whatever it might be for their business, but then starting to want to learn more about ads. So they look for advertisers that are posting, relevant information out there. And then you can have people kind of reach out to you for consulting and different work opportunities. So it's just really good for kind of the pulse for future work, as well as just, the latest news and things that are going on in the advertising world.
I think I was off Twitter for a long, long time, and recently I started getting back into it because I culled most of the people I was following, and that's culled as with an CU, not killed, because that would be mean. But it has made it a much more useful and enjoyable place to be because I'm not exposed to the level of noise that used to be a real problem on Twitter.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of noise on Twitter. And yeah, if you have a bigger list, I would, or a big following or followers list, I would say, take advantage of Twitter lists. I've just kind of done that recently, and the more that I'm kind of getting into conversion rate optimization, I'm starting to find people that really live in that world, and I can build lists of those people, and then see what those people are talking about today, and reach out to them. And I've really been my tactic lately has been seeing really interesting things that people are writing, really great mindsets to have, or stats or whatever it might be. Or some people just give feedback freely, So I had one guy I found that was basically post your website below, I'll give you feedback. So that's how I really started to get into conversion rate optimization. I just read his whole thread and was like, wow, this is really good. So one of my tactics now is finding those people that are incredible, and then being how did you learn? What book do you recommend? All that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how I really started to dive into it a lot more now in terms of conversion rate optimization, is just finding how did you learn this information and how can I learn it? Which Twitter has been just instrumental in helping me figure that out.
I can see that. And certainly I think I can see a whole new level of usefulness for it. Now we've been running the podcast for a while in terms of the way that I can connect with people that you just can't on other platforms.
Yeah.
So anybody listening to this, that there are going to be two kinds of people. There are going to be those who are busy working in a day job, and there are going to be those who are running their own business. And I think for many, you should be the poster boy for the employee that's running a side gig. And there are two questions I have to ask you, and I would fully expect you to answer diplomatically. That would be the word. So the first one is, you've been running your side business for a while. You're very competent, you're very skilled, you're in demand because you have a strong personal brand. Which pays you better, the day job or the side gig?
Currently the day job does. I think the side gig could, if I wanted to invest more time into it. But it kind of, I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I'm kind of having a house built currently. And I'm just recently kind of moved down to Arizona, so I'm just getting a lot of family time in right now. So it's been a balance of, do I want to make more money on the side job and not have time, as much time with my family, or going out and seeing, not really going out, but going and seeing my house, in the progress of getting done there, or investing more into kind of the side business and getting that going more. So yeah, currently it's the day job.
And you kind of led me on to the other question, which was, and I think Jessica, now marketing, it sounds to me that you're aligned and connected to that business in a way that many employees aren't. So there's that going on the side. So my question is, would you ever want to run your own business? Or are you quite happy having this dual role?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've definitely, thought about it in a lot of ways. The previous agency I was at, I wasn't happy, so that's where I started to get these other clients. And that was an agency too that they didn't really care, as long as they, don't take our clients kind of mindset, don't dabble in our niche, all that kind of stuff. So I've played with it there. It is something that I have thought about, maybe in the future, but I've really liked going to Now Marketing Group because they've been a really solid brand for me to be able to go into, have a nice impact, and they work with great people. They're doing incredible work. So I'm liking the job that I have now. I'm kind of content where I'm at now. Will it change in however many years? It could very well. It's just kind of, I'm taking it in stride right now.
You know what I love about that answer is because you've invested in your personal brand, what it has allowed you to do is stand out and be attractive to those businesses that you're aligned with. You have options, you have choices, which people who haven't built their personal brand probably wouldn't. The truth is, if you hadn't invested in Tony Does Ads, you probably wouldn't be at Now Marketing. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty in it in a lot of ways. Like the more that you can kind of show what you stand for, and when you meet, like someone like Jessica that has the exact same values, like they have like kind of a brand manifesto that says, this is the kind of people we are and what we do for our clients and how we go above and beyond. And I was like, this is everything that I live for. So this is perfect. So yeah, it really worked out. And that's where I haven't thought about leaving at all, really, just because it seems like it's the place to be, because it is in such alignment. I've reached out to her as recent as this week, and I was like, I'm really getting into conversion rate optimization. Can I start doing it for our clients? And she's someone that says, yes, like, let's do it. So that's really cool too. If she was someone that was like, no, just do ads, just do this, or, do the stuff that you don't want to do, that might be different, and then I might want to go out on my own. But they are an agency that's really just really focused on helping people, and then really just treating their employees right. So I haven't had that, I need to get out of here now feeling at all, really. It's just work that I'm passionate about, so I'm really enjoying it.
Well, I love that answer. It was a brilliant answer, and I'm glad you've been really, really generous with your knowledge throughout everything, talking about ads, building the personal brand, and being this ambassador for the dual entrepreneur on the one hand and employee on the other. I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and
go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's an interesting thing too, because it's one of those things where now it's kind of neat because I can have stability with the daytime job, and my side hustle, Tony Does Ads, now too I can kind of position myself as not having as much time, and I can be more picky, right? Whereas if I was doing it all on my own, I might get into a situation where it's like, I need money. I will get this client, because it is money, and it's not something that I might be aligned with or want to do. And that's one of the cool things with my situation now is I have a steady, reliable income from the day job. And then I can kind of use my limited time and kind of my position to be a little bit more picky and look for just the work that I want to do. And kind of what I like to do, though, is still not say, like, I'm not going to help you, but try to find other people that might be better fits, for that brand, what they're aligned with.
Tony, I'm looking at the time. We should probably bring things to a close soon, but I have one question left to ask you. It's the one I have been really good with remembering recently. And what's one thing you do now that you wish you'd started 5 years ago?
I think the main thing is, and I've mentioned it a lot here, I think already, is just following your passion. I think before, 5 years ago, I don't want to do the math, but I think it was a while ago. Never mind. I would say follow your passion. Before, kind of what I was going to say is I went to a college and wanted to get a job that had a great title at a great company, and that it's changed a lot where I don't care as much about income in a lot of ways, and it's more about let's wake up and be excited about who we're helping and the work that we're doing. So I really just would say, I would tell myself back then, like, just do what you want to do and be passionate about it. And that's kind of what I've done now with sort of getting into conversion rate optimization with ads. I've just dove into it head on and really into like a deep rabbit hole in a lot of ways of just like learning everything I can and really nerding out about it. And it helps you, it helps your personal brand too, because people see that passion and it kind of leaks through in a lot of ways, and it can help kind of position yourself to be that expert. So just follow your passion and do it 100%, really.
Absolutely. I'm waving a flag. That's an awesome answer. And if people want to take things further with you, if they want to connect with you, how would you like them to do that?
Yeah, so my website's tonydoesads.com, so that's a great place to reach out to me. I'm also just everywhere online, but primarily on Twitter at TonyDoesAds, but everywhere else at TonyDoesAds as well.
Perfect. Tony, Christensen from Tony Does Ads, thank you so much for your time. You've been a great guest. I can't wait, hopefully, to meet you in person if I can make it over to social media marketing world sometime soon.
Yeah, Bob, thanks so much for having me. And I know we covered so much here. So if anyone has questions, feel free to just reach out to me on any of those platforms, and I'll be sure to answer them, provide clarity there too.
A lot of the time when I speak to my audience, I assume you're a business owner. Today I want to speak to employees and say this. If you're freelancing, talk to your business owner and ask them how you can make this a win-win situation. If you don't, then eventually the hammer will fall. And if you do, then you might find you get to play much bigger like Tony has. If you're the employer who resists or resents freelancing, then I feel you and I was you, but try this. Make it clear to your team you value loyalty over everything, but that you also want to foster entrepreneurial skills. Make it clear that competing is not allowed, but that carving out a niche and claiming that as your own is. Raise your people up, and they might raise you up with them. Before I go, just a quick reminder to subscribe, and if you haven't already, then join our Facebook group. You can find a link in the show notes, or just hit amplifyme.fm/insiders. I would love for you to connect with me on social media. Follow me wherever you hang out. You'll find me at Bob Gentle. And if you do, then message me. Let me know so I can follow you back. If you enjoyed the show, then again, I would love for you to review it on iTunes. It means a lot to me, and I don't underestimate that. It really does mean a lot to me, and it's also the very best way to help me reach more subscribers. My name is Bob Gentle. Thanks again to Tony for giving us his time this week, and to you for listening, and I'll see you next week.